I think as we go through our journey, we understand more about the market. We're seeing more opportunities. We're very agile. We're happy. We're small and lean enough to be able to pivot quite quickly.
Hey, this is Jesse here, and you're about to hear my discussion with Richard Acosta from VOR Interactive, an AI-driven sports data provider creating unique insights and engagement products. In this one, Richard tells a story of developing predictive soccer models with an 83% win rate, how VOR Interactive is productizing their predictions as first-party data, why they opted not to use the predictions to bet at scale, the pros and cons of selling to affiliates as a go-to-market segment, and current efforts to close a seed funding round after predominantly bootstrapping the business to date. VOR Interactive is taking a unique approach to generating unique data-driven content, and I know you'll enjoy getting to know Richard as much as I did. But before we get started, heads up that applications are now open for the first pitch competition being held at the SPC Summit in Lisbon this coming September. First Pitch is an incredible platform for startup founders to accelerate their progress, and a $100,000 prize package doesn't hurt either. Look in the show notes for the First Pitch application link, which is now open until July 25th. The Betting Startups podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. 4 out of the top 5 US operators personalize player experiences with Optimove. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/bettingstartups. And if you like what you see, you'll get your first month free. All right, we are back here on the Betting Startups podcast. We're in the lazy days of summer right now, and astute audience members might recognize the fact that we missed an episode last week. So we are back here. We are picking up right where we left off. And with me today, I am joined by Richard Acosta from VOR Interactive. Richard, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm very well, thanks, Jesse. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. First and foremost, I've been hearing a lot of conversation about the heat in Britain right now. How are things as of today?
Yeah, it's pretty warm. It's just gone 5 p.m. here, so it's starting to cool down, but we're expecting a hot one over the weekend, towards 30, I think.
All right, Richard. So thank you for joining the podcast. VOR Interactive, tell us the origins of the name VOR. What does that mean?
So we came up with the name Vore, doing a lot of Googling and a bit of researching, trying to find some cool names. And in Norse mythology, Vore is a goddess associated with wisdom. So we thought that was quite appropriate for our company.
Wisdom. All right. Well, that's a bit of a preview, perhaps, of what we're going to talk about today, which is the products and technology you and your team are building. Before we get to that, though, Richard, let's learn a bit about yourself. If you can give the audience a bit of an introduction, tell us a bit about who you are, your background, and some of the major chapters of your journey before starting Vore.
Yeah, sure. So I actually spent my 20s working in the property industry, completely different to what I'm doing now. Worked for property investment companies, property management companies, and then found my way into marketing and sports marketing in particular. And now, to cut a very long story short, I'm on the board of a marketing agency. I've managed professional athletes. I've worked on quite a lot of commercial contracts with professional athletes, both with brands and rights holders. And then simultaneously to that, myself and my co-founder at Vore had a software development agency for a number of years. He's a fantastic software developer, and we had a great team that built some really nice and cool technology platforms, but nothing in iGaming. So it was only due to our joint sort of love of sport and obsession with sport, particularly with my co-founder, that he came up with the idea to develop some sports analysis tech. And that was where the company was born, really.
Well, let's stay there for a second, Richard. Talk a little bit about what that original idea was and maybe the initial conversations between you and your co-founder. I always find these origin stories interesting in terms of how an idea is sparked and obviously is a catalyst for what obviously now is a full-time focus building out the business. But take us back to the very beginning there in those conversations with your co-founder and the opportunity you both saw at that time.
Yeah, look, he's a football or soccer nut. And I remember him sort of coming to me one day in between client work, sort of saying, look, I've got some ideas about how some predictive algorithms could work. And he went to work on the first algorithm, which seems like a long time ago. And the first one he developed analyzed the unders overs markets in soccer. And we went through a whole process of tweaking and testing. We back tested it over an 18-year period. And we found that it was quite successful, generated millions of predictions and had a high percentage success rate. So that was where it was born, really. And we've since created other algorithms. We've, improved those and really built out a robust system of data creation ultimately. And we realized that there's some real potential in creating first party data and then figuring out how to monetize that and how that can be useful for brands. And yeah, I think where we are today is we seem to have a good handle on that now, having been to all the conferences and met all the companies and sort of figured out the landscape. We find ourselves where we are today.
All right, well, let's do a bit of a deep dive now on Vore, Richard. And for the benefit of the audience, just to tee this up, can you give us a quick elevator pitch on what is Vore, who is it for, and ultimately what's the value proposition of what it is you and your co-founder have built here?
Yeah, sure. So we're a UK-based sports data provider. So as well as serving general statistical data, we also build out our own unique first-party data across multiple sports. For a single soccer match, we generate just under 2,000 unique prediction points. So it's a vast amount of data when you consider that in soccer alone, we operate over 50 global leagues. In addition to that, we also have the key US sports plus college sports, cricket, tennis. So half of our business is the creation and delivery of data via API. We've got really nice sort of API that we've crafted and nice sort of client dashboards that we've built. And then the other half of our business is how we productize that data and how we sort of find ways to make it engaging and useful for iGaming businesses in particular, but sports media businesses generally.
Cool. We'll come back to the productization of that data in a few minutes, Richard, but I want to just stick now with the predictive capabilities, the one half of it you talked about here. And just reading your website, it does allude to the fact that I believe the historical win rate over the 17 years worth of backtesting you guys have done is something along the lines of 83%, which is an impressive number. Also, I'm sure invites some amount of skepticism. Just talk us a little bit through, your guys' process and journey to develop and refine that model, obviously without giving up the secret sauce, but the journey of developing something like that with that level of capability, just give us a bit of insight into that R&D process.
Yeah, so originally looking at sort of yes, no answers. So would a specific event happen or not? And, we did manage to find a model that was accurate, as you say. We got it to just over 83% for, a vast amount of predictions. We've since developed that to create a percentage probability for an event. So we've developed it further. But yeah, so it's evolved over time. And where we find ourselves now is that actually, I think the most useful format of that data is in finding an accurate percentage probability for a specific event.
And insofar as taking that predictive capability and potentially using that information yourselves to bet, has that been something that you guys have done? Have you validated the strength of the model on that basis? Have you, perhaps like self-funded the business through betting? Just talk about how you guys have applied the predictive capabilities on that side.
We have gone through sort of tested models of doing that. And we went through a bit of a journey of figuring out on which side of the fence we sit. Do we want to go down that sort of professional betting route, or do we want to be more of a B2B supplier? And I think, when we thought through some of the logistic of operating professional betting syndicate and everything else, we realized that we wanted to have a B2B focus, sort of deliver our data to clients so they can use it for promotional purposes, bet builder products, VIP risk profiling, that sort of thing. And we also use that data to create our own unique pricing as well for the market.
Got it. Well, let's talk about how you are productizing it now, right? You've alluded to a few things now, the widgets, the pricing algorithm, probably some other use cases for it as well. But at this stage of the journey, what is the focus area insofar as how you're packaging up and delivering this data to the market?
Our first engagement widget, Vore Turbo, we've created. I think we found product market fit. I think we've gone through a process of seeing what widgets were on the market, sort of figuring out who we want to be and who we want to sort of appeal to and attract. And through that process, I think we've landed on a product now that's getting some really good traction and interest. Whenever we have demos with companies, they always really like it. So finding out purpose of the widget was sort of the process we went through. There are a lot of widgets out there on the market, but sort of finding something that was a good fit for affiliates and operators, I think we're in a good space now. So we've launched our first widget, Vore Turbo, and we've got a series of other widgets in the works as well.
And just to give the audience a bit of insight into that widget, what exactly does the widget provide? What does it do? Give us some context there.
Yeah, so our software builds marketing narrative boxes automatically. So we wanted to ultimately build an innovative and interactive banner ad. We know that banner ads don't perform like they once did. So we wanted to create a banner ad that's relevant to the content on page, but it's also really interactive so the user can play around with it. They can read some unique content. They can click around with it, have a look at potential returns, have a look at probability percentages as well, because obviously our data is integrated with the widget. But at the same time as presenting all of that data, we wanted to keep it as clean and simple as possible. Ultimately, we want this tool to generate new users and not necessarily the sort of more statistically focused users. What the widgets are doing is displaying some interesting statistics about the game. They're displaying some probabilities about specific events happening. And then they're giving the user the ability to have a look at live odds and live parlay odds as well, and just kind of creating a bridge to generate traffic through to operators as quickly as possible. But as I say, the first widget we have is very much targeted at the sports fan. It's not necessarily targeted at the bettor. It's more about trying to convert those sports fans. If they see something interesting, they click through.
Excellent. And is this widget live anywhere right now with a partner, or I guess what's some of the early traction been as it relates to the performance of this widget and its ability to drive that traffic?
Yeah, so look, we're in discussions with 9 or 10 of the biggest affiliates in the US. We're getting very close now to signing contracts with a number of those. Our aim is to be live with a number of those by the time the new NFL season starts. We are currently live with OddsShark in the US, so we have an MLB campaign running with them at the moment. Early numbers we're getting through look very promising. We're seeing some really nice conversion statistics, so that's really exciting for us. But the widget's also multi-language as well, so it's global product. So we're also live in Italy as well with an affiliate. That's via our very close partnership with Hub Affiliations in Italy, and that's obviously in the Italian language. But we've currently got Spanish, Portuguese, English, Italian, French, and we're adding new languages sort of by the week now as we think through how we launch in different markets. But yeah, currently live in US and Italy, and then conversations with all sorts of our companies worldwide.
Awesome, Richard. And then on the other side, you did talk about the pricing that this widget could feed into and helping, operators and suppliers refine their models with this input. Talk about any conversations you may be having on that end of things and any of the interest that you're seeing and the value that this potentially could bring to those clients.
Yeah, sure. We've spoken to trading teams, a number of operators who are assessing our data as an additional tool to help set pricing. And as I say, it's also, when it's in its percentage probability format, it's very useful for the promotion for the marketing teams as well. So really has a dual purpose across trading teams and marketing teams.
And, you talked about the US sports, and obviously just from a sporting perspective, they're much different, but also the data underpinning them all is much different than soccer for a number of reasons. For you guys, having gone to market initially with soccer and developing the models around soccer, how has that extended into the US sports? Has it been as easy to develop models for those sports? Has it been more challenging? Just talk about the differences and similarities, I suppose, between soccer versus the US sports.
Yeah, very different. And we're currently undergoing, we're in the development process now for the US sports. We expect to have a load of data product ready for the start of the NFL season. But yeah, look, it's certainly been different. I must admit, I only know a limited amount because our CTO doesn't tell me too many technical details. He likes me to focus on the sales and marketing side while he sits in the dark room tapping keys. But yeah, look, we know it's different. We know that markets are very different. Language used is different. It took us a little while to get used to the difference in terminology, even like, accumulators and parlays as a small example. But yeah, there's definitely been challenges, but yeah, we're confident we're going to have a really robust product roadmap in place for the US sports.
Cool. And as far as the business model goes on the widget side, how are you commercializing that? And what's the commercial model that you're taking to market with the affiliates and the other media properties that are looking at it right now?
Yeah, so we've actually come to the realization that it's probably different for different markets. Obviously, with CPA costs different in countries, we've had to consider that. So some markets we're looking at purely a monthly subscription fee, whereas other markets we're looking at lower fees with a bit of rev share in there as well. But then there's also CPM model as well that we're investigating with some potential partners and clients. So the answer to your question is there are many different commercial models, and we're flexible about that as well. So it just depends on the requirements of the client really and the geo we're working in.
Got it. And as far as deploying, integrating, and rolling out a widget, talk a little bit about the lift for a partner to implement it. And look, I talk to a lot of B2B startups on this podcast who sometimes face the dreaded integration roadmap hazard that every B2B company in this industry faces. which is to say lengthy delays, you're in the queue. Even once you get integrated, you don't necessarily go live right away. And even once you do go live, it takes a while to monetize. So from your perspective and in your experience, how's that been for you? And again, give us some context on the integration aspect of it all.
Yeah, sure. So that's something we really put a lot of focus into. And we're really excited about that part of it, actually, because, we can integrate our widget within 48 hours. We've created a really innovative client dashboard that's really easy to use. So you don't need to be technical. You can choose your live feeds from a whole long list of operators. Really easy to generate the iframe code and to preview the widget as well. So we kind of wanted to make it as less technical demanding as possible. And I think we've managed that. And yeah, literally anyone can use it. And with integration time being within 48 hours, really easy to kind of do a deal with us and then go to market with it.
Awesome. And sticking with the affiliate vertical for a second, Richard, I know you're having a lot of conversations with affiliates like OddsShark, which you're live with, but we've been reading a lot over the last, I guess, coming up on a year now about some pretty seismic shifts happening in the affiliate landscape, particularly on the US side of things. And curious, as you're having these different conversations with affiliates about deploying your widgets, what's the sentiment you're getting from them as to the headwinds that it's facing? And I guess downstream to that, how is that potentially affecting you guys and your ability to deploy your widget with some of these affiliates?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it has been a bit of a moving sort of jigsaw for us, really. We've had some conversations with affiliates who are like, yeah, we love it. We want to, let's do a contract and look to get it live on a certain date. And then a couple of weeks later, they kind of come back and said big changes within our business. And I've seen it in the press as well. A load of redundancies have been made, but even things like, the Google changes. And I've definitely seen that, where we're having a certain conversation with an affiliate and then things certainly change. Most of the time, they're still saying, we love it and we want to use it. But we do have a number of them that have sort of said, look, we're going to have to kind of pause for the next 2-3 months. But certainly from a US perspective now, we're looking at the start of the NFL season as a key date to really get some mass adoption in the US. I'd say we're still on target for that, but there certainly have been a number of affiliates that have had to press the pause button for a while they make development changes to their websites, and then there's all the HR stuff they have going on as well. So yeah, we've certainly seen some impact on that side.
Have you guys thought about productizing your own consumer version of the widgets under some consumer brand, or has it been purely B2B from day one, or what's that internal dialogue been like?
No, we have. Absolutely. Look, we've brainstormed all sorts of stuff and, we've thought about B2C products, B2B. I think as we go through our journey, we understand more about the market. We're seeing more opportunities. We're very agile. We're happy. We're small and lean enough to be able to pivot quite quickly. So myself and my co-founder, I remember us being at a conference and sort of walking around and just sort of out of the blue saying, hey, wouldn't it be amazing if we had a widget that did this, this, and this? And then literally, a week later, we've got it in dev and it's on the roadmap. So we're small and lean enough to be agile that when we do see opportunities, we're going to take them. And I certainly think there will be opportunities on both B2B and B2C side of things.
All right, Richard. Well, let's shift and talk about the capital side of all of this. To start this part of the conversation, if you can give us just some historical context on any funding maybe you've raised so far, or just talk about how you've been able to fund the project up to this point.
Yeah, we are getting very close now to closing our initial seed round, and that's been very useful. But prior to that, we did bootstrap ourselves. We've invested our own money and a lot of our own time as well to get to where we are. I think the good thing for us is that we didn't give away too much of the business too early. So we were able to build out some significant IP, while still retaining most ownership of the company. Yeah, we're in a good place. We've got some great shareholders on board. We've had some fantastic companies invest in us already and some really cool individuals as well. We've got some really close partnerships with the likes of Hub Affiliations in Italy, a nice international as well, really good partner of ours, and a number of others as well, loads of traffic in the Isle of Man. We've got a really strong board of directors, group of shareholders, group of partners, and it feels like there's just, it's only up from here.
And you're currently raising the seed round, as you alluded to. So as you're out there having conversations with prospective investors, what's some of the feedback you've been getting insofar as the opportunity you're pursuing here?
Really good. Yeah, really good. In fact, I'd say the only sort of negative stuff we get is when people say that our ticket size isn't big enough. I've spoken to some funds that are sort of saying like, you're not asking us for enough money and we only do sort of, 5 million plus. So yeah, our seed round, we're willing to take sort of 50, 100K investments, certainly from the right people. So And our seed round has consisted of those types of investments. But yeah, whenever I have conversations with new potential investors, I think they're just really excited about the journey we're on. Love the product we've built. Everyone always says that the product's really clean, and they can tell that we've come from outside of the industry as well. We don't have a huge background in iGaming ourselves. I mean, myself and my co-founder. So I think a lot of them have found the product we've built to be pretty refreshing as well, because we're maybe not building the same stuff that everyone's used to. So it's been really nice. I think we've had some really good conversations with potential investors that are still ongoing now. So yeah, hopefully as we get towards the end of this year, we'll have some very exciting new investors on board.
Coming back to the point you just made about being relatively new to the iGaming industry itself, albeit, you have a long background in sports and sports marketing, but from an iGaming perspective, how do you think that lack of background and experience has both helped and benefited you guys on this journey, but also maybe hindered you or held you back a little bit?
Yeah, I think it has been a double-edged sword. I think when we first started attending conferences, we were actually quite surprised by the poor build of a lot of products, to be quite honest. Walking in to the iGaming space, having worked in other industries and seeing some really high-end products, we were quite surprised. And I think over time, I realized that that's because people do sort of try and restrict innovation. I think a lot of the time there's a bit of, well, if it ain't broke, doesn't need fixing. But I certainly think that over time, we've met some good people that are open to innovation and are sort of willing to try new things. It has taken us a little while to kind of get people to take us seriously. I think another thing I've seen is that you're not really taken seriously in the iGaming industry until people have seen you around for a couple of years. And we're now, coming up to sort of that 2-year date. We're coming up to roughly the 2-year period that we've been going to conferences, engaging with people. And I'm certainly seeing a lot more openness and people kind of, willing to open more doors for us and giving us more time. Certainly, it seems to be easing up a little bit now. And that obviously is because we're live in the market. We have some really nice, shiny products as well. Whereas, a year ago, we were just talking about it, and it makes a big difference having something rather than just talking about it.
Well, I think that's an interesting point you just made, right? Where it's like, maybe your second or third year attending these conferences, you really only then start to feel like, okay, like I belong here. And my experience, I think part of that is that, you meet a lot of people your first year going to these conferences and they're like, hey, nice to meet you. You're a nice person, interesting idea you have. But it's hard for them to take you very seriously until they see you there again a year later to know that actually you've stuck around, right? And that your idea has had enough validity to it that you're still at it and still working at it. So I think that's almost like a litmus test many people apply, whether consciously or subconsciously. And then that second or third year attending these things, really then you are, part of the community in a real way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, a lot of it is people wanting to see what your perseverance levels are like and how much drive you have to actually get to market and you make a difference. And I mean, that's one thing that myself and my co-founder don't lack is drive and ambition and perseverance. We'll keep going. We're like bulldogs. We'll keep going until people are literally saying, we told you we don't like it, go away.
Nice one, Richard. All right. Well, we have a busy back end of the year coming up here. I think we are, at the time of recording, 54 days away from the start of the NFL season, which you've now mentioned a couple times as being a core focus for you guys. As you look to the back half of the year, what are the major milestones you're focused on hitting, and what can people expect to see coming up over the next 6 months?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, we've got the double thing of obviously the European football season starting up again next month as well as the NFL season sort of similar time. So yeah, I think in terms of key targets, we'd look to be live with 10 prominent affiliates in the US, probably a similar amount across Europe as well. And then we're still kind of approaching the whole scale up, how we enter the market and how we scale that up. So yeah, I'd like to see us live. I'd like to see our widget live with at least 20 partners and clients by the end of the year. But also, we've already got a number of data clients as well. So we're also scaling that up, and we're starting to speak to people in operators and affiliates in different regions that find our data interesting. So yeah, I certainly think that by the end of the year, we'll have some really strong traction and some good brand awareness as well. I'm already starting to speak to organizations about editorials and panels and getting a bit more involved in the industry and having some more presence and brand awareness. So that's pretty much what we're planning for.
And if you extend the timeline out to 5 years, in your wildest dreams, 5-year vision, where is VOR Interactive at that time?
5-year vision. Yeah, I think, look, I guess the thing everyone's looking for is a big exit, right? We're no doubt looking at a large exit to either a client or competitor. I know that's certainly what our investors want to hear. But ultimately, my real goal is to keep us as lean as possible while still allocating enough funds to scale up. Sales and marketing, obviously, but just human resource, trying to not go too fast, because I've seen it before in iGaming and other industries, people hiring too quickly, people spending too much too quickly on sales and marketing. So it's that balance really of remaining profitable while scaling up quickly enough. But I certainly think within the next sort of 3 to 5 years, we can really see some serious growth and penetration in the market.
All right, Richard. Well, that brings us to our rapid fire questions. I'm going to hit you with a few ones here. Short answers. It'll be fun. When you get out of bed in the morning, open up your mobile phone, check it. What's the first app you're opening on your phone?
Either Sky Sports or my emails.
Probably Sky Sports though, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Nice one. If you're out at the karaoke lounge, what song are you singing?
See, I'm a singer. I'm a big singer. I'm a trained singer. So Frank Sinatra is always my go-to. I actually would go for I've Got You Under My Skin. That's my favorite one. But I also like New York. So yeah, that's funny you should ask me that, because I could talk for quite a long time about singing.
Let's take a minute and do that. What does it mean to be trained as a singer? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, in my late teenage years and early 20s, I was a front man in quite a few bands. I went to performing arts college. I trained to sing classically. So that was my real passion when I was in my early 20s. And then I also did a bit of producing and sound engineering as well. So yeah, I missed that bit out earlier. I jumped straight to the boring professional stuff, but actually music was a really big passion of mine. And I have actually recently made a bit more of a foray into the music industry as well, because a very good friend of mine is a very successful music manager. And we've decided to work on some projects together as well. So that's been cool.
That's very cool. As if you weren't busy enough with VOR Interactive, you have a side project.
I'm a sucker for punishment. Yeah.
Nice. Last rapid fire question for you, Richard. If you could be anybody else for one day and one day only, dead or alive, who would that be?
Cool. That's a good question. I'm going to go Winston Churchill.
Classic. All right. I like that one. As you mentioned a few minutes ago, the European football leagues are kicking back off in a few weeks here. Give us a bit of a preview on what you expect to see shake down in the Premier League this season.
Yeah, so I'm a Liverpool fan. Obviously some tragic news recently. So yeah, that's kind of on everyone's mind at the moment. But I think Liverpool are going to be very strong. I think, there's been some great signings. I hope to get some matches at some point. So Premier League wise, yeah, I'm feeling good about Liverpool. I think it could be another big year, hopefully.
And are you going to try and make it over to North America next summer when the World Cup comes this way, or what's the thinking there at this time?
Yeah, I think one of our key things on our calendar is the SBC in Fort Lauderdale. I think we'll definitely go over for that. Whether I head over for the World Cup, not sure yet. I do have an 8-year-old son who absolutely loved watching the last Euros with me. I'd like to think I'd be watching some games with him.
Cool. Well, we have a year to work it out. But in the meantime, Richard, for people that want to reach out to you to learn more about Vore, to maybe get a demo of the products and the widgets, give a quick plug to how the best way they can reach you.
Yeah, sure. We have a contact form on our website, VORinteractive.com. People can also find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to message or email. And yeah, always happy to give a video demo to anyone wherever they are.
Awesome. You did give me a demo, by the way, the other week when we caught up, and it's very cool stuff you have developed. So I'm wishing you and your team all the best with everything over the next few months here, and look forward to continuing to follow your story.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Appreciate your time today.
The Betting Startups podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. 4 out of the top 5 US operators personalize player experiences with Optimove. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/bettingstartups. And if you like what you see, you'll get your first month free.